name is Renee Vogelsang. I am the New York director at an organization called Frac Action. We work statewide here in New York as well as at the national level on the transition off of fracked gas and onto clean energy that protects our health, air, and water. We were one of the co-founders of the New Yorkers Against Fracking Coalition during the historic campaign to ban fracking in New York. We are here today as state representatives, local elected officials, and environmental organizations who are a part of a large chorus of voices in New York who are standing up and saying no to the Trump administration's pressure and bullying to revisit and resurrect two major fracked gas pipelines that were already reviewed and already rejected in New York State. I would just like to give a brief review of the pipelines for our press. The Northeast Supply Enhancement Project, also known as NESE pipeline, would run approximately 24 miles underwater in New York Harbor between New Jersey and New York. The DEC denied the pipeline in 2019 and 2020, given the harm it posed to water quality, including impacts from stirring up toxic contaminants, causing turbidity and damage to critical habitats. New Jersey also denied this pipeline in 2020. The Constitution pipeline, which would run just east of here through New York State, coming through the southern tier. Its planned route in 2016 was approximately 125 miles from Susquehanna County, PA to Schoharie County, New York, crossing 250 waterways. The pipeline would impact water quality given sedimentation, erosion, dredging, and changes in turbidity, posing harms to sensitive streams, trout, and other habitats. The New York DEC denied the Constitution pipeline a water quality certification under the Clean Water Act in 2016 due to the potential impacts on water and the project's failure to demonstrate compliance with the state's water quality standards. This decision was upheld by both the New York Court of Appeals and the U.S. Supreme Court in 2018. We also want to mention that there is a ridiculous 30-day public comment period for the revisited NESE pipeline. That public comment period ends at the end of July. We have many of our organizations statewide who have submitted letters, statements, asking the DEC and the state of New York to extend that comment period way beyond just 30 days to at least 120 days and have at least 3 public hearings. So that is something that many of us are speaking out on. But I'll just say again, these pipelines were reviewed and roundly rejected before, and they should be rejected again. With these pipelines back on the table, you now have our movement back on the table. Many of us have put out statements, submitted letters. We are here today, but on August 9th, there will be hundreds marching in New York City, and you will continue to see us across New York State in large numbers pushing back against this. We are calling on Governor Hochul today in New York State to not bow down to pressure from big fossil fuel and a president who is in their pocket. We are here to say no to the Constitution and the NESE pipeline. First up, we are going to launch our speakers today. I'd like to introduce a major champion in the fight for a healthy environment and clean energy, hosting us here today in her district, Senator Leah Webb.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. You know, I remember it was some time ago, right here at City Hall, right to our right. I was on City Council, and at the time, there was a proposal to have hydrofracking come right here through the city of Binghamton. And many of us knew then, and most certainly now, that the not only potential, but the very real threat to water quality was something that we felt our residents in the city of Binghamton and surrounding area were not to be treated as if they were guinea pigs for profit. And so that rings true today. We know that water is essential. It is something that's fundamental for us to literally live and most certainly be able to enjoy. And so as someone who has been in this fight for a very long time with many of the folks here, and of course my esteemed colleagues in the Assembly I'm so proud to be joined by Assemblymember Anna Kellis and, of course, Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo, who at the time and still today, we remain strong in our advocacy and ensuring that no resident in our community, and most certainly in this state, will have their quality of water put in jeopardy, therefore jeopardizing their life, their livelihood, our community health for the sake of profit. We know that cost is too high, and we believe that no one should ever bear that price. And that's why we're so pleased that New York took those steps to not only ban hydrofracking, but most recently, the steps that we took in the last legislative session to ban supercritical carbon dioxide fracking in our state, because it is well documented. This is not something where this is just people overreacting. It is our responsibility to be stewards not only of our environment, but protectors of our community health. And so what we are asking all of our community members to do is become more aware, to also participate in the public comments that we are hoping to have that time frame expanded. The DEC, or the Department of Environmental Conservation, is the place where the decision will be made right here in New York. And so we are urging not only the DEC, but Governor Hochul to continue to stand with us in ensuring that our residents, not just here in the Southern Tier, but across our great state, continue to have access to clean, healthy water, and also continue in our state efforts to have clean, renewable energy. As it already has been stated, we have rejected these pipelines when they were proposed in the past, and we need to continue in that same vein as we continue to experience extreme weather events that continue to create devastating impacts on many of our residents right here in the Southern Tier and across the state. Now is not the time for us to take steps backward in practices that we know create harm. We have a responsibility and an opportunity to ensure that our livelihood as a community, our environment is protected, not just for us here today, but for those coming after us. And so I want to thank all of the advocates that are here today, my colleagues in government. And again, I implore our governor, the DEC, to reject the proposals for these two pipelines in our state. And that requires us as a community to continue to stand together and demand that we have and continue efforts to improve our water supply. As a state, we continue to make investments through the budget and through other important avenues, and we need to do that. Thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you, Senator Webb. And I just want to also clarify the Northeast Supply enhancement. That has the very short 30-day comment period, which we are all asking for an extension on that comment deadline. The Constitution pipeline, which comes through the Southern Tier, not a full application with a comment period yet. They've done some initial applications, so we do not have a public comment period yet for Constitution. But as soon as that happens, we will be sounding the alarm to our Southern Tier and statewide residents on that. So next up, we have another force in the New York State Legislature and a pioneer in protecting people's health and environment, Assemblymember Anna Kellis.
I want to thank the Senator for her decades of stewardship for the environment, as well as Assemblymember Donna Lopardo. She has been an inspiration for me for many years on her work and courage on the environment. So I wanted to stand for a moment to talk about the economics of this all. Because for me, I think that it is absolutely appalling and ridiculous that the excuse of energy affordability is being used as the justification for these pipelines. We know from research over and over and over again that these pipelines increase cost to ratepayers. And in fact, there's a very conservative estimate that says that the NESE pipeline will increase the rate on ratepayers to about 3.5% immediately. So we know that it is not going to create savings. It is going to be a burden to ratepayers. And the thing that drives me crazy about this, and this is the message that needs to get out, is that consistently these companies are pushing to build more pipelines because the research shows that this is a way that they make huge profits. They put the cost of these pipelines onto ratepayers and gouge ratepayers. So not only does the cost go to ratepayers, but the guaranteed profits to those companies get passed on to ratepayers. And that is part of that burden of that increase in cost. So they want to continue to build as many pipelines as possible because this is part of their profit model. This is part of their business model. And what we are saying is not on our dime and not in our state. Because not only do we know that it will cause huge problems for water quality across the state, but we know that this will have a tremendous negative impact, as I said, on ratepayers, but also small businesses, also on the recreation industry, also agritourism, also the agricultural industry. The southern tier, central New York and the southern tier are the centers of agriculture in New York State. Agritourism, this is the center, a multiple billion-dollar industry in New York State, in the Finger Lakes. This will directly decimate those industries by dragging and building this pipeline through this area. So not only direct impacts on our ratepayers, direct impacts on our businesses, but the third economic impact, of course, is the impact on climate change. We know just in 2022 alone, the last huge report that came out, over $3 billion cost borne by New Yorkers, New York taxpayers, direct cost to rebuild bridges, to rebuild culverts, to rebuild roads, to rebuild from flooding, homes, insurance increases from the impacts of climate change, the direct impacts. How many deaths did we see in Buffalo, for example, in that one storm? That was a direct impact. That's an economic impact for families for generations. That is going to be borne by New Yorkers, that impact, if we allow these to be built. And those were the estimates that were done by the DEC years ago when these were first evaluated. And we said no for that exact reason. This is not worth it. We know what will be economically beneficial for New York State is to have homegrown, sustainable energy developed in New York State that we can depend on in perpetuity, not to allow these corporate for-profit companies to use us for their profit. They build, they leave, they move somewhere else, they keep building, they keep making profit. We get stuck with the bill. We get stuck with the cleanup. The economic burden would be felt for decades. This is not energy affordability. This is bankruptcy to us, and this is energy highway robbery. This is not where we should be putting our money. We should be putting it in ourselves, and that's sustainable energy. So I wanted to thank everybody for being here. I know we have a whole panel here, but we have had over 10,000 people that came out and spoke out against this last time. That will happen again if the government allows us to speak out. But if we are fast tracking these public comment periods to prevent people from being able to come out and speak, then this is not an honest process. So I want to add my voice publicly and officially to say we need to make this an honest process and let everyone speak out that we know is out there. We know how they feel because they said it several years ago and their voices have not changed. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Assemblymember Callis. Next up, we have one of the state's leading environmental nonprofits, Claire Walsh-Winsler with Environmental Advocates of New York.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me. Thank you to Senator Webb and Assemblymember Callis for being here on this essential issue. My name is Claire Walsh-Winsler. I'm the Director of Food, Agriculture, and Land Use Policy at Environmental Advocates New York. The two proposed pipelines we've seen before, and these pipelines are dirty, dangerous, and old technology. These pipelines threaten our water, our ecosystems, our farms, and our communities. New York has already rejected these pipelines. The DEC found that they would both violate water quality standards and cut through some of the most sensitive marine and aquatic habitats in the state. And these threats have not changed. For the Nessie pipeline, this would require drilling through 23 miles of ocean floor, churning up sediment, releasing toxic legacy pollutants like mercury and copper that would exceed legal limits and spreading contaminants throughout our aquatic ecosystems. This means for very sensitive organisms like fish and seabirds and plants, but it also means for our recreation, for fishers and for hunters, for our fishing industries, and for our farms. These contaminants are highly toxic to both ecosystem and human health, but especially mercury. It's highly toxic at low concentrations and can persist in the environment and accumulate our food chain. This not only puts our energy future at risk, but it puts our entire food system. It puts the food we eat every day and the water we drink every day at risk. This pipeline is dangerous, both of them, and unnecessary, and nothing about either of these projects have changed, only the politics and the political pressure. Governor Hochul shouldn't cave to new political pressure on old, bad ideas and should stand up for safe drinking water and public health in New York State. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. We have a few more speakers. Our next speaker is a local elected official and leader in the Southern Tier, Binghamton City Council member, Nate Hotchkiss.
So I'm proud to be here today as a member of City Council, standing with neighbors and community members who are here to protect what matters: our health, our water, and our future. The pipelines we're talking about here today, the Constitution and the Nessie projects, were already denied. They were rejected because they pose a serious threat to our environment, to our climate, and the communities that we represent. Nothing has changed about these projects except that they're being pushed by a powerful fossil fuel interests looking to, again, profit on these projects. Here in Binghamton, this isn't just a policy debate, it's extremely personal. We get our drinking water directly from the Susquehanna River. If that river is put at risk, so is our city, so is every household, every school, every family that depends on clean water each day. We can't gamble on that. So as someone who was elected to serve this city, I know it's my job to protect the people who live here and not just serve the special interests and polluters in the fossil fuel industry. These pipelines would bring a real danger to our community. They would lock us into a decades-long fossil fuel dependency when we need to be investing in clean energy and a more resilient future. We've already dealt through enough environmental harm in this region through flooding, contamination, and divestment. The last thing we need is more pollution threatening our land and our water. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hotchkiss. All right, our next speaker is with a very powerful and historic organization in New York and across the nation. Valdi Wiederpass is with the Sierra Club Atlantic Chapter, Susquehanna Group.
Humanity is running a risky global climate experiment, as if we are collectively holding a revolver gun with 100 chambers, with one bullet loaded, and then aiming it at our food supply, and pulling the trigger once every year. This is the analogy for the 1% risk that Lloyd's Insurance Company has assessed for a severe impact to our global food supply that is driven by climate change. So we're risking having global famine at 1% per year, every year that goes on. And over the next 30-year period, this risk amounts to a 28% chance of that happening over the full 30 years. And this could mean that grocery store shelves could begin emptying out of some foods, even right here in New York. New York State has experienced several climate-driven extreme weather events recently that we should heed as climate wake-up calls. On July 3rd, severe thunderstorms brought golf ball-sized hail to the Binghamton area, along with 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts that knocked down many trees, causing property damage, along with power outages affecting 20,000 customers. On July 13th, severe flash flooding closed several roads due to rainfall of 5 inches that fell in a matter of a few hours in at least 2 nearby communities, Newark Valley and Glen Aubrey. Some folks in Newark Valley were actually trapped in their homes as water rose near the bottom of first-floor windows. All of this was just from thunderstorms, which can now pop up quickly and dump much more rain at rates of 3 to 4 inches per hour. Climate change has warmed our oceans, so they evaporate more moisture into the warmer atmosphere, which can now hold 7% more moisture, which makes it available to feed these severe thunderstorms, which are difficult to predict. New York must deny permits for any new gas pipelines to protect our water, and we need to meet mandated targets of our climate law, the CLCPA, which was passed in 2019. According to a quote from Lazard's Levelized Cost of Energy June 2025 report, on an unsubsidized dollars per megawatt hour basis, renewable energy remains the most cost competitive form of generation, end quote. We need to heed New York's Climate Action Council and rapidly build renewable energy, including solar and wind power, backed up with adequate energy storage enabled by efficiency programs. Thank you very much.